Welcome to the Partist channel. Today, we explain Leviticus chapter 16 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We are diving into one of the most intense, highly structured, and just profoundly significant texts in the entire Tanakh. Think about the setting for a second. The Israelites are camped out in the desert, right? They're living entirely around the tabernacle, which is the actual physical manifestation of the divine presence among them. So what we're about to explore in this explainer is the precise step-by-step mechanism given to them to maintain the purity of that sacred space and, ultimately, their own relationship with God. Here is our agenda for today. First, context and holy preparations. Second, the two goats. Third, ritual of the blood. Fourth, sending away the scapegoat. Fifth, the yearly atonement ordinance. And finally, lessons from Leviticus 16. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Context and Holy Preparations.
So this stark warning to Aaron comes immediately after a massive tragedy, the death of Aaron's two sons. The very first verse of this chapter reminds us that they died when they approached the Lord improperly. It hits hard, and it proves an absolutely vital point. Approaching the divine requires absolute respect. You have to adhere to strict boundaries. God tells Moses to warn Aaron that he can't just casually walk into the most holy place, known in Hebrew as the Kodesh HaKodashim, whenever he feels like it. This is the innermost chamber. It contains the Ark of the Covenant. The divine presence literally appears in a cloud over that space. So unauthorized entry, it's literally a matter of life and death. The space is simply too potent, too holy, to be treated like an ordinary room. Because of this immense life-or-death holiness, the preparation laid out in verses 3 and 4 is incredibly rigorous. Aaron can't just walk in. First, he has to wash his entire body with water. Then, he has to completely change his wardrobe. Now, normally, the high priest wears these highly ornate golden vestments encrusted with precious jewels. But to enter the Kodesh HaKodashim, he has to completely swap those glorious clothes for simple, pure white linen. We're talking a linen undergarment, a tunic, a sash, and a turban. And you might be wondering, why? Well, you don't enter the presence of the divine to show off human wealth or status. That plain white linen represents supreme humility, equality, and the total stripping away of the ego. He has to enter with absolute physical purity and spiritual submission. Alongside this outfit change, he must bring a young bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering, specifically to atone for himself and his own household first, before he does anything else. Section 2. The two goats.
Next, Aaron takes 2 male goats from the Israelite community, along with a ram, and presents these goats before the Lord right at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And here is where the community's involvement gets really fascinating. Aaron casts lots, known in Hebrew as gorelot, to determine the distinct destinies of these 2 physically identical animals. It's a powerful moment. This visually separates the offering meant for God from the one meant to carry away the community's sins. So one lot falls for the Lord, and that goat is going to be sacrificed to purify the sanctuary. But the other lot, that one falls for Azazel. Now, the word Azazel is honestly one of the most mysterious terms in the text. But if we break down the Hebrew, it really helps us understand its plain meaning. It essentially combines the word ez, which means goat, with the word azel, meaning to go away or depart. So quite literally, it is the goat that departs. While the first goat restores the sanctuary's purity through its blood, this goat for Azazel is kept completely alive. It's presented before the Lord specifically to make atonement by being sent away into the desert. So we are given this incredible, visceral, physical representation of sin being removed from the people's presence and sent far out into the desolate wasteland. Section 3. Ritual of the blood. In verses 11 through 19, we get to observe the precise, highly choreographed mechanics of Aaron's movements inside the sanctuary. First up, Aaron slaughters his own bull to cover his family's sins. This is such a crucial step in leadership. The high priest has to be entirely cleansed himself before he can even think about intervening on behalf of the entire nation. After slaughtering the bull, the sensory details of the text just become so vivid. He takes a censer full of burning, glowing coals directly from the altar. Then, he takes 2 handfuls of finely ground, sweet-smelling incense. Carrying both the fire and the fragrance, he carefully steps behind that heavy curtain and enters the Kodesh HaKodashim.
Verse 13 gives us a stark, intensely practical detail about what happens inside that innermost room. Aaron places the incense on the burning coals and boom, a thick cloud of fragrant smoke immediately billows up. This smoke creates a completely necessary physical barrier over the solid gold lid of the ark, which is known in Hebrew as the kaporet. Interestingly, the word kaporet shares a root with the word kippur, meaning atonement or wiping clean. The smoke literally conceals the kaporet, shielding Aaron's life from the intense manifestation of the divine presence while he works. Only after this protective, life-saving cloud is firmly established can he proceed to the very next step, which is bringing the bull's blood inside. With absolute, undivided focus, he dips his finger and sprinkles the blood of the bull, and then later the blood of the people's goat, onto the front of the kaporet. He sprinkles it exactly 7 times. Now, if you know Hebrew literature, you know the number 7 is deeply associated with wholeness, creation, and absolute completion. This action thoroughly and completely cleanses the Kodesh HaKodashim, the tent of meeting, and the altar. Verse 16 is very specific about the why here. He is making atonement for the sanctuary because of the uncleanness and rebellion of the Israelites, whatever their sins have been. You see, the physical space of the tabernacle has kind of absorbed the spiritual impurity of the people living around it. So through this meticulous 7-fold sprinkling, this sanctuary is completely reset and cleansed. Section 4. Sending away the scapegoat. Notice the deeply physical, visceral transfer happening here in verses 20 through 22. Aaron has finished atoning for the physical sanctuary, and he steps back outside to the live goat, the Azazel. He doesn't just stand casually near it. The text says he lays both of his hands heavily on the head of the live goat. He uses his own body weight to press down, verbally confessing all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites out loud. He is literally physically placing that massive, heavy burden of communal guilt right onto the goat's head. Once those sins are transferred, an appointed man takes this goat and leads it away, releasing it into a solitary place in the desolate wilderness. Just like that, the impurity is entirely cut off from the community. Verses 23 to 28 lay out a strict, logical hygiene protocol. The uncleanness has been effectively drawn out of the camp and dealt with, but now the residue has to be washed away. Aaron and his assistants must all completely wash themselves and their clothes before they can even think about re-entering normal camp life. Aaron removes those special white linen garments, leaves them in the holy tent, bathes his body in water in a holy place, and only then puts his regular garments back on to finish the burnt offerings. Even the appointed man who led the scapegoat away and the man who burns the remains of the bull and goat outside the camp, they all must undergo strict washing of their clothes and bodies. It brilliantly highlights how the separation between the holy, the clean, and the unclean is maintained with absolute precision and care.
Section 5. The Yearly Atonement Ordinance.
As we reach verses 29 through 34, God turns this specific set of rituals into a permanent, enduring law. This wasn't meant to be just a one-time emergency fix after the tragic death of Aaron's sons. No, it became a strict yearly calendar event to ensure the continuous spiritual cleanliness of the entire nation. Verse 29 firmly establishes the date, the 10th day of the 7th month. The 10th day of the 7th month in the Hebrew calendar is what we now universally know as Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. The promise attached to this day in verse 30 is incredibly powerful. It says, "Because on this day atonement will be made for you, to cleanse you. Then, before the Lord, you will be clean from all your sins."
But here's the thing. While the high priest performed the intense, physically demanding rituals inside the sanctuary, the people were definitely not just passively watching. They were commanded to actively participate. The text says they must deny yourselves. The Hebrew concept here is inui, which implies affliction or denial, and it's practically understood and observed in Jewish tradition as fasting and abstaining from physical comforts. They must also completely cease all manner of work, acting in solemn solidarity on this holiest of Sabbaths. And the text is beautifully inclusive here, emphasizing that this applies equally to the native-born Israelite and the alien living among them. Everyone must stop, everyone must fast, everyone must reflect together.
Section 6. Lessons from Leviticus 16. This entire chapter completely redefines our understanding of atonement. It shows us that atonement is a highly structured, deliberate process of recognizing our flaws, taking responsibility, and actively seeking a clean slate. It's not an accident. It's not just a fleeting feeling of guilt. It requires deep intention, rigorous effort, and a profound willingness to confront exactly where we have fallen short. The physical mechanisms of the tabernacle directly reflect the internal mechanisms required for human growth. Just as Aaron had to prepare meticulously before entering the Kodesh HaKodashim, washing himself and changing his clothes, we have to take structured, honest steps to reflect on our own behavior. We have to strip away our ego, just like Aaron stripping away his gold and flashy garments, before we can honestly assess ourselves. This chapter shows us that our private misdeeds can actually pollute our communal environment. Most importantly, it teaches us that we must actively and specifically verbalize our mistakes in order to let them go, just like Aaron placing the sins on the head of the goat.
Thinking about the Azazel, the scapegoat, carrying away the profound weight of the community's misdeeds, leaves us with a really powerful final thought about our own lives. What are you carrying right now that you need to finally release? We all have missteps. We all have regrets that weigh incredibly heavily on our minds. True growth requires both acknowledging the error honestly and then, crucially, allowing it to be sent away into the wilderness so you can start the next chapter clean, renewed, and whole. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.